I always wondered if it was easy to grow a chocolate plant, so I made it happen. So I got the fruit that chocolate comes from. And yes, I can in fact confirm that chocolate is the salad. I've also always wanted to make my own chocolate, so we took 10 seeds to grow into a plant and the rest for our chocolate salad to make chocolate. And my besties, you're all probably wondering if I called him yet.
I didn't.
And so it began. Well, this is a cacao pod. Inside are the seeds that we ferment, roast, and grind to make chocolate. The seeds, they're covered in a white sticky pulp that's high in sugar, but you can consume it. It's really good. Some people make jams, liquors, drinks, other desserts, but it's got a tangy flavor, and to me it tastes like a lychee mixed with a mangosteen. It's one of the most unique and best fruits I've ever tried, and I would eat 10 of them if I could. But the cacao seeds are what finally get turned into chocolate. The seeds, they're like a dark chocolate mosaic, and in order to grow it, we're gonna have to remove that outer gelatinous layer of skin from the seeds to reveal the inner cacao nibs. And botanists say that the 30 to 50 seeds that lie in the pod can even germinate in 24 hours. So we got to work. We peeled each seed so we could prep them to sprout the little baby tails. Then we placed our seeds in orderly fashion on a damp piece of paper towel. We sealed that in a glass jar. And we started the daily timer, spritzing it with water religiously to keep it damp and give it the right environmental conditions to grow. And we also planted some in soil so that we could optimize our chances of growth in case the germination failed. But I waited 7 days. And after the first 24 hours passed, something insane happened because the little tails, they started to sprout out. A couple days passed, they started to grow tails. Day 3 and 4 came around and I was still so excited for our chocolate plant. I thought, what could go wrong? Everything's going so right. And of course, I kept religiously spritzing it every other day with more water to keep that paper towel damp. And you know what they say, you never know until you try, but you gotta take good care of it. But day 5 and 6 came around. It did look like the seeds were starting to darken. I started to wonder if I needed to keep the outer gelatinous white layer of skin on the seeds so that they could germinate because they looked to be getting a bit moldy and I wasn't sure why they were getting dark either. But if we know anything, it's that plants are all trial and error, and sometimes you have to try many times, and some mold is okay, but this was some pretty sketch mycelium. Well, I also had my grow box handy, and by day 7 I realized if I wanted to save these little lives, I had to put the last seeds standing in my grow box to give them the optimal conditions to grow. And don't worry, you don't have to wait until next week for results because I wouldn't do you dirty like that. We got all the results in this video. So we got the seeds in my grow box. And after we did that, of course, we had to continue religiously checking the seeds in the soil. They were looking really good. I was very happy, and I went back to the grow box a couple weeks later, made sure the seed was still alive and thriving. It did look like it shrunk up a little bit, but it's nonetheless doing very well. But pro tip, don't touch them so much, because I swear that had something to do with the failure of germination rates in comparison to my other plants. But cacao pods are also exotic fruits, so you really never know what will and won't grow in the freezing temperatures of the harsh winters of Canada. They seemed like they were doing so well so far in the grow box. But if you're as invested on an emotional level to this as I am, then listen up, because about 2 weeks passed after I put my seeds in my grow box, and like I said, sketch mycelium. But nonetheless, and they were looking incred. I was very excited and thought we were well on our way to growing a chocolate salad. I actually also put a couple of them in my grow box and some of them had lots of potential, but the tails were actually starting to have some sort of growth traction and some nice roots were shooting out of the sprout, so I put it back in its home and I left it. But the next week I went to check on them and they also started to turn black like the ones that were germinating on the paper towel, and the ones in the soil, of course I was still checking, they seemed pretty dead. But I was determined to succeed. So you know what I had to do? I got my hands on another cacao pod, but this one must have been a different variety because it was something out of Rick and Morty. The seeds were purple and the flesh seemed like it was rotting. My fingers and my hands turned orange. I was really not down for this, and I was just happy we had the second cacao pod because I didn't care how we opened it. What really mattered was the seeds. I also got a lot of the rotten flesh juice in my eye. It was a crazy experience. I almost questioned my sanity at one point. It was a true disaster. But when you're at rock bottom, the only way that you can go is up. So after crying a little bit and making sure I didn't have an eye infection, I got to work and I got all the seeds and I peeled them all nice and dandy, my orange hands and everything, but the seeds kind of looked weird, like something was off with them. Open the exact moment that I got this juice in my eye.
Oh my god, that's literally the worst idea ever. What the
squirted right in my eye. It was a very difficult time, okay? But none of that mattered. The only thing that mattered in this moment to me was growing a chocolate plant in Canada, especially when it was the winter. So we took the seeds, spent a few hours separating them all. They still looked kind of sketch, not gonna lie. But I got them on a piece of damp paper towel in orderly fashion, waited a week. Within 7 days, I'm telling you, sketch mycelium follows us everywhere. So you know what we needed to do. Another cacao pod, number 3. This one, it seemed promising. We extracted our seeds, peeled that outer gelatinous layer of skin off and got them in orderly fashion on a damp piece of paper towel and waited 7 days. And this is what happened. It was a little bit more promising, but still, sketch mycelium. But there were a few little golden tails. So I put those in my grow box. I was still determined as heckin' to grow a darn chocolate plant. So you know we got cacao pod number 4. This time I was on vacation in Florida and I'm like, well, I have the perfect growing conditions in my environment to grow chocolate and it's gonna work. So I took the seeds. You know what we did? Got the seeds ready to grow and 7 days passed. Another 7 days and they looked really, really good. So I changed the paper towel. I went and looked at them in another week and it didn't look like it grew, but it looked like it shrunk. But at this point, I traveled from Florida to LA and I was like, okay, you know I wasn't satisfied. I knew where I went wrong with some of these things, so I thought, okay, we're gonna grow these ones. Cacao pod number 5, get them on a piece of damp paper towel. I'm determined as heckin'. Cacao pod number 5 is the last one that we're gonna try to grow this plant, and if it doesn't work, then we're just gonna heckin' make chocolate. By the way, the skin is so good. It's all edible. It tastes so sweet. It's like a lychee. But I took the seeds, got them prepared to make chocolate, but I also took some of them to grow. I even added cinnamon to prevent that sketch mycelium. And the tails, again, they were looking okay. So they also just shrunk up. So after months of trying to sprout these seeds, failing time and time again, I thought it's finally time to make chocolate with these seeds. We still have the ones in our grow box and hopefully they'll grow. So frustrated but not defeated, but I really need some chocolate salad right now. I changed the approach a little bit to make something delicious with the cacao pods, the leftover seeds. We roasted the cacao beans, we removed the shell, we ground them into a powder, mixed them with sugar, added a splash of milk and blended it. And after a few hours, I had chocolate. But this chocolate, it was like the texture of a brownie and it tasted really good, but it was a thick dark chocolate. And I wanted to make one that was nice and runny chocolate. And chocolate that was a little bit more sweet because I don't think I added enough sugar. So I made a second round of chocolate. Really should have gotten a chocolate mold, but this time I was creative. I used baking cups as my mold and I still think it had to be a bit more creamy, maybe needed more milk. I'm not really sure. I'm not a chocolatier. Still worked out really well. And this time it even tasted so much better than the last time. So 5 cacao pods, 2 chocolate making sessions, and 1 surviving chocolate seed that's still in its grow box home. These cacao pods had me in a chokehold and they're not releasing me until I grow a darn chocolate plant successfully. It's definitely safe to say that this was like nothing that I ever tried before, and although we didn't fully succeed in growing a full-blown plant with cacao pods growing on it, we did learn that sometimes failure can lead to unexpected and delicious discoveries, and who knows? Maybe we'll try again with cacao pod number 6 in a little bit, but I did say that I always wondered if chocolate was easy to grow. And I pretty much made it happen and got my chocolate salad too. And I never called him, by the way. So thanks so much for watching and being part of this chocolate growing journey with me. I'll see you next week. You know that
I love you.
And don't forget to subscribe.